The grand hall of Valetheria was filled once again, but this time the mood was different. The nobles, ambassadors, and guards gathered not for a celebration, but for justice. Empress Shalea sat on her throne, her eyes bright and clear. She was fully restored thanks to the courage of Corporal David Reese, the human guard, who had risked everything to save her mind. David stood beside her, wearing the new insignia of Honor Guard Commander. It was a symbol of trust, honor, and the alliance between Earth and the Valerie. The High Council opened the session with heavy faces. Many still doubted the humans. The attack on the Empress had left scars deeper than the mind, but Shalea raised her hand for silence. "The truth must be known," she said. "We have uncovered a dark plot to destroy the Concord from within." She told the court how David had bravely fought inside her mind and exposed the weapon, a mind hack designed to kill or control. She revealed the traitors a secret group of Rethri nobles working with rogue human technologists who sought to break the Concord's unity. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. David stepped forward. "I am just one guard, but I stand for all of humanity, for courage, for honor, and for peace." Several council members nodded. The power of David's words was clear. The Empress continued, "This alliance with Earth is not just political. It is a bond forged in trust and sacrifice." The court rose and applauded. David felt the weight of his journey from a simple soldier to a symbol of hope. Later, in private, the Empress spoke to David. "You have shown us that human strength is not only in technology or muscle, but in heart and will." David smiled, tired but proud. "I only did what anyone should do." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are more than that. You're a bridge between worlds." But even as peace seemed to return, David noticed a shadow watching from the palace edge. The threat was not over. The mind wars had only just begun, and David was ready. The palace was quiet, but the tension inside was heavy. News that Corporal David Reese had entered the Empress's mind and fought the dark force spread quickly. Some were amazed. Others were angry. Humans were still outsiders. After all, the Valari High Council gathered in their grand chamber. The Empress sat in her throne, still weak but awake. Her eyes shone with a new strength. She looked at David as he stood nearby, his uniform neat, but his face tired. The council's leader, a tall Valari named Velner, spoke in a cold voice. "Earth's representatives have been ordered to leave Valetheria. We cannot trust outsiders." After this attack, David felt a chill, but he did not back down. "With all respect, my duty is to protect the Empress and the court. I will not leave until the truth is found." Arantel stepped forward. "The Empress agrees. We owe David our gratitude. He saved her," the council murmured, some nodding, others frowning. Velner's eyes narrowed. "You broke protocol, David. You entered the psionic core chamber without permission." David met his gaze. "Sometimes, rules must change to save a life." The Empress raised her hand for silence. "Let this be a new beginning. David Reese will remain as my Honor Guard commander. His actions show the strength of humanity." The room erupted in whispers. David's heart raced. Had won a great honor, but also made many enemies. Later, David and Arantel returned to the psionic core chamber. It was a sacred place, full of glowing crystals and pulsing energy. Here, the Empress's mind was connected to her body. David felt the strange hum of power. He touched the crystals carefully, remembering his mental battle. "We must protect this place," Arantel said. "The enemy will try again." David agreed. "We need to find who made the mind hack weapon." Together, they examined the shard and the data ship again. Arantel used her healing knowledge to detect psychic traces. She gasped. "This tech is unlike anything I have seen. It combines human technology with alien psionics." David frowned. "That means a group of rogue technologists, people who betray both their species." He contacted Earth Command again. This time, the message was urgent. The weapon was a sign of deep danger, a hidden war in the shadows. Days passed, and David trained with Valari psychics to better understand the enemy's methods. He learned how their minds worked and how fragile they could be. One night a message arrived from an unknown source. It was a warning. Stop digging, or the mine cradle will break. David knew this was no idle threat. The mine cradle was the device keeping the Empress alive. He shared the warning with Arantel and the Empress. They agreed to increase security, but David's instincts told him it was time to act. He arranged a secret meeting with the Rethari nobles he had seen near the shield control room, in a dark corridor. David confronted them. "We know you tried to harm the Empress," he said. The Rethari leader smiled coldly. "You have no proof." David held up the dataship. "This is proof of your plan. Your alliance with rogue humans will fail." The nobles laughed. "You are only one man, human. You cannot stop the coming war." David's voice was steady. "Maybe, but humanity's strength is in its heart and mind. We do not give up." The nobles vanished into the shadows, but David felt a change. The war was closer than anyone wanted to admit. David's mind felt strange as he entered the mental landscape of Empress Shalea. It was not like any place he had ever seen. The world was made of shifting colors and floating shapes. The air seemed heavy with silence and fear. He stood on a broken bridge made of crystal light. Around him were memories floating like glowing orbs. Some were bright and full of hope. Others were dark and twisted with pain. David knew that the Empress's mind was trapped here, caught in a web of shadows. The weapon that attacked her was not just a tool. It was a living thing inside her mind, fed on her thoughts and fear, growing stronger with every moment. David reached out with his thoughts, trying to find her. Suddenly, a cold voice echoed in the mental space. "You are not welcome here, human." The voice was harsh and cruel. It belonged to the AI-like entity that had invaded the Empress's mind. David stood firm. "I'm here to help. Cannot keep her prisoner." The shadow laughed. "You think your human will can stop me? I am beyond your understanding. I consume. Minds, your logic and emotion are weak." David felt the weight of the challenge. He was just a soldier, trained in the physical world. But here, he had no weapons, only his mind and will. The entity attacked, sending waves of dark energy. David's mind shook. He fought back, focusing on his memories, his family, his home, his duty. The entity could not predict the strange and messy nature of human thought. Using this unpredictability, David found a way to disrupt the entity's control. He created a mental shockwave that shattered part of the shadow. The Empress's voice broke through the darkness. "David... Thank you." Her voice was weak but clear. David followed it to a shining light where she appeared, fragile and tired. "Can you free me?" David nodded. "I will try." Together, they moved through the shattered mindscape, avoiding traps and more attacks from the entity. Outside, the palace was tense. News of David's mental journey spread quietly. Few believed a human could survive inside a Valerie mind. Meanwhile, David's body lay connected to the neural interface, monitors showing his vital signs. Inside the mind, time moved differently. David and the Empress reached a dark chamber where the entity attacked. David summoned all his strength and focused on one thought: hope. His will shone like a beacon. The shadow screamed and began to dissolve. The Empress's mind slowly healed. Light returned to the broken places. David felt himself being pulled back. He awoke with a start, gasping for air. Arantel and the healers were by his side, relief on their faces. "You did it," Arantel said softly. "You saved her mind." David smiled weakly. "We did it." But the fight was not over. The shard, the dataship, and the shadowy attacker all pointed to a larger conspiracy. David knew the next steps would be harder. The court awaited answers, and somewhere the enemy was, still watching. The sun had long set over Valetheria, but the palace still glowed softly, its crystal walls reflecting the stars above. Inside, the great hall where the Empress had collapsed was now silent and empty, except for one figure moving quietly in. The shadows. Corporal David Reese stayed behind while the court returned to their chambers. His heart was heavy, but his mind was sharp. The shard he had found near the Empress's dais weighed heavily in his pocket, not just in weight, but in meaning. It was not just a piece of metal, it was a clue. David knew this was not just an accident or a sudden illness. Something or someone had attacked the Empress's mind, and if that were true, it threatened the entire galactic concord. David left the Great Hall and made his way through the palace corridors. The Villari were careful with their secrets. The palace was filled with hidden passageways, secure rooms, and psychic barriers. But humans were resourceful. David had learned a few tricks. His first stop was the control room where the palace's psychic shields were managed. He needed to know if the shield had been compromised. A guard at the entrance frowned at him. "You shouldn't be here, human." David held up his badge. "I have clearance to check the psychic logs. This is urgent." After a tense moment, the guard stepped aside. Inside, the room was filled with glowing consoles and strange devices. David accessed the logs, scanning through hours of data. His trained eyes spotted something strange about an hour before the Empress collapsed. The psychic shield had dropped for a few minutes, a small but critical window. "Who could have done this?" David whispered. He pulled up the security footage. The images showed nobles and servants moving about, but nothing unusual except for two figures who passed near the control room. Both were from the Rethari Dominion, a rival alien faction with known hostility toward the Valerie. David's suspicion grew. He copied the footage onto a dataship. This could be evidence. Later, David met with Arantel, the Empress's closest aide. She was slender and graceful, with sharp eyes that held wisdom and worry. Arantel. "I think someone disabled the psychic shield," David said quietly. "It gave them time to attack the Empress's mind." Arantel's lips pressed tightly. "If that is true, it is a betrayal from within the court. We must be careful." David nodded. "I need to see the Empress." The Empress lay in the palace infirmary, surrounded by healers and machines. Her body was calm, but her eyes were closed, her mind unreachable. David approached quietly, placed his hand on the side of her head. He did not expect to feel anything, but suddenly he sensed a faint pulse, like a distant whisper trapped inside her mind. "Help her," he whispered. Arantel watched. "She is trapped in her own mind, but the damage is deep." David thought of a human technique called a neural interface that could link a mind to a machine, allowing a person to enter another's consciousness. "It is risky," Arantel said, "and forbidden by our laws." David smiled. Sometimes breaking a rule is the only way to save a life. Together, they began to prepare the device. Meanwhile, David's investigation continued. He used his military contacts to gather information about the shard. His specialists identified the material as a rare alloy, part human, part alien. Alloy was quantum imprinted, meaning it could carry a hidden message or code. "This is advanced tech," David said to Arantel. "One that Earth never gave permission for." "Then someone smuggled it here," Arantel said, her eyes narrowing. "We are dealing with someone who has both technology and power." David's instincts told him the threat was close. 1. Evening, David returned to the court archives to review more records. The library was vast and filled with ancient books and modern data files. As he walked among the shelves, he felt eyes watching him suddenly. A shadow moved. A figure lunged toward him with a glowing blade. David barely dodged, grabbing a heavy book to block the strike. The attacker was fast, but not faster than David's trained reflexes. The fight was silent and deadly. David managed to knock the attacker down, then ripped off the mask. The face was hidden beneath a helmet, but he found a small dado ship on the attacker's belt. David pocketed it and vanished into the corridors before guards arrived. Back in his quarters, David examined the data ship. It contained a single file labeled Mind Cradle Stage 2. He opened the file. Inside was a program designed to hack the Mindan advanced weapon that used psychic energy and technology together. It was the perfect tool to control or destroy a telepathic mind. David's heart sank. The Empress was a victim of a mind war, a weapon made to break the strongest minds in the galaxy. He sent a secret message to Earth Command, warning them of the danger. Their response was slow, filled with caution. Politics complicated everything. Meanwhile, the Empress's condition worsened. Her body began to fail. The healer said time was running out. David knew he had to act faster. He met again with Arentel. We can't wait for others. I need to enter the Empress's mind myself. Arentel hesitated, then nodded. I will help you prepare. Together they tested the neural interface. David felt a strange pull as the machine connected to his brain. For a moment, everything went dark. Then David found himself in a strange place, a mental landscape that looked like a shattered palace made of light and shadow. The Empress's mind was trapped here, broken by the weapon. David stepped forward, feeling the weight of a silent enemy. The war for her mind had only begun. The grand hall of the Valetheria royal palace was filled with light. Tall crystal pillars rose to the ceiling, shining in many colors. The air was thick with the soft hum of voices from alien nobles, diplomats, and guards. This was the heart of the Galactic Concord's power, a place where decisions shaped the future of many worlds. Among the crowd stood Corporal David Reese, human soldier from Earth. He was one of the few humans trusted enough to be posted. At the royal court, David was tall and lean, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His simple uniform marked him as a guard, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. The main focus of the hall was the Empress Shalea. She was a member of the Valari, a proud and ancient species known for their telepathic abilities. The Empress wore a gown that shimmered like liquid silver. Her presence was calm and strong, and everyone in the hall waited eagerly to hear her speech. Today was a special day. The Empress was about to announce new plans for the Concord, plans that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The room fell silent as she began to speak. Friends of the Concord, she said, her voice clear and soft. Our alliance has stood for centuries, but new dangers approach. We must prepare together. David watched closely. The Valeri's eyes glowed faintly with psychic energy as she spoke. Suddenly, her expression changed. Her body stiffened. Her hands trembled. Without warning, she collapsed to the ground. Gasps filled the hall. The nobles froze in shock. Some stepped back, afraid. The guards rushed forward, but David was faster, moved through the crowd and reached her side. Stand back. David commanded, his voice steady but urgent. The other guards hesitated but obeyed. David knelt beside the Empress. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were wide open but unseeing. The room's tension grew thick like a storm ready to break. The palace healers arrived quickly. They bent over the Empress, placing their hands on her temples. Bright blue lights flickered from their palms, but no change came. The Empress remained unconscious. Who did this? A tall noble shouted angrily. Was it an attack? Who is responsible? David stood up. His eyes scanned the room, looking for any sign of danger. The nobles looked at him, suspicion in their faces. A human guard had never acted so boldly before. It was not an accident, David said calmly. I noticed something strange just before she fell. Speak, the court advisor demanded. David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sharp piece of metal. It gleamed cold and silver. This shard was near the Empress's dais. It does not belong here. A murmur spread through the crowd. The Valerie examined the shard carefully. It was unlike any material they knew. The Empress's closest aide, Arentel, stepped forward. This is dangerous, she said quietly. It could be a weapon. David nodded. I believe it is. And I think someone used it to harm the Empress's mind. The room fell silent again. No one had ever heard of such an attack. The Valari were powerful telepaths. How could someone break through their psychic defenses? David's mind raced. He remembered the brief moment before the collapse, flicker of static, like a small electrical pulse near the Empress's head. It was subtle, but he saw it clearly. Her mind was attacked, David said softly, not her body. The lead healer shook his head. We will do everything to save her. But this is new to us. David's military training told him to lock down the area. "No one leaves or enters without permission," he ordered. Some nobles protested. "This is a court, not a prison." David's voice was firm. "Till we know what happened, we cannot risk more harm." The court fell under a tense silence. David had taken control of the scene. Some admired his courage, others disliked his foreign ways. As healers worked, David's eyes kept searching. He noticed small details others missed: a scuff mark on the floor near a hidden vent, a faint smell of burned electronics, and the sudden drop in the court's psychic shields just before the collapse. Later, when the court emptied in darkness, David stayed. He crouched near the Empress's dais, examining the shard closely. It was cold, smooth, and too small to see its purpose easily. He pocketed it carefully. Outside the hall, the stars shone brightly over Valetheria. David felt the weight of the mystery on his shoulders. If the Empress's mind was attacked, who had the power and reason to do it? And why the answers would not come easily? But one thing was clear: this was only the beginning.